Sam Pilafian, multifaceted, skillful human being, fabulous teacher. His greatest skill as a teacher was making you feel like you were the only one in the room when he was talking to you, and that if it was meeting you for the first time, it was like you'd known him for forever, and if you'd met him even only one time before, it was as though you'd known him for forever. That's a unique ability to bring people to a place of comfort, which is a channel where you're switched on for learning. So it was a great skill in conversation, but it was a fantastic tool in teaching. That's one. I think as a musician, there's very few places that you can go where the art of chamber music being made as a brass musician can be better exemplified than his playing with the Empire Brass. Throughout the entirety of their catalog of recordings, from the most serious classical music to the very early days when they were playing memorized recitals, included the Etler Brass Quintet, to the most popular music that they recorded in their Telarc recording years. His playing and writing that went with that playing. Some of the best examples of a bass player doing all the facets of bass function at the highest level. Most care for pressurizing the melody with Ralph or Jeff, whoever was playing the song, and providing relief and pressure to the momentum of the music, providing a sound foundation that you could build a quintet on top of, a sound of brass that was a consort, and he was constantly thinking about that. That was a skill that we actually used together in designing instruments, which is to being able to put from a piccolo trumpet all the way down through a sousaphone, this idea of sounds that knit together from one instrument to the next as they go from the very highest to the very lowest, was how he treated his position as a tuba player in chamber music. His constant search for trying to do things that were interesting and different, and with the tuba, or just as a writer in a variety of genres that we wrote together for, from marching band to music that was recorded by the Air Force Band, to drum corps, to putting backing tracks of tubas on a Steve Ferroni album, who's the drummer for Eric Clapton and a variety of other great pop music icons. There's such an interesting mix of things to be able to be around because of his exposure early on in his career, which was everything. If you didn't have it, then you had to write it. If you didn't have an arrangement for it, then make an arrangement for it. If you needed to take a flavor on a tune that was different than its original thing, then that's where the arranging and the writing chops come from, and the composition craft to make things sound correct sonically was where the craft end came from. So it was the same when he would study improvisation. It was the same when he put together another group after Empire, which was Traveling Light, which was banjo and guitar with tuba and this great set of jazz standards. This idea that if you can't get out of it, you might as well get into it, right? Which wasn't that he was doing things he didn't want to do, but it was always that if he was doing something that he'd been tasked to do, whether it was something he wanted to do or been hired to do, he was all in. He was completely for whatever it was and enthusiastic about it. And if it was something that he wasn't really that interested in, he would turn it in enthusiastically and then move on about the momentum of his life. And if it was something he loved passionately, then there would usually be a pit stop for a while in his career where he would hang and play in a group or do a certain amount of writing for a certain type of genre because he liked it and he enjoyed it, and he had the ability in his career to follow his folly frequently because he was so skilled. He was so skilled with his ears, with his knowledge of how to write, with his ability to play, and his ability to teach. And his teaching ability wasn't just in the studio where he would teach tuba and euphonium how to play, or working in front of a jazz band and making them sound better, but it was also in the form of production in recordings, because his ability to recognize the psychology of a recording situation that was stressed or needed to be done at a certain time. He was really good at managing humans in those situations to get the highest level of performance with the least amount of stress, and to triage whatever needed to happen if there was something happening away from the view of everything else. Some of that came to do with having to do, PR obfuscation in dealing with the variety of characters that he worked with in his brass quintet. Became incredible producing assets on a recording project, whether it was large scale with multiple people or whether it was a very small situation with folks, and keeping chops where they needed to be optimal. Sam Pilafian great human engineer.